Hello, 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 and welcome to Starting the Day the Right Way 5-minute devotion for April 6th, 2021. All right, so I am on spring break this week along with my son. We're in the same school district, so that worked out well. His days off are my days off, and he gets a few more, but it's okay. Anyway, it was a gorgeous day down in Myrtle Beach, close to 80 degrees, and we went golfing with him and his our pastor and our pastor's son. So it was a group of 5 of us, and we went miniature golfing, and we had a blast. Right, took us about an hour, hour and a half or so, hour 15 maybe, to get through 18 holes. So, but my little guy actually got 2 holes in one, so he was very excited about that. But he ended up shooting the highest score out of the group of 5, which got him down. So once we got back in the car, we were talking about it. He's like, I don't know if I want to play. I want to play here at this course ever again. It was a different course than we were normally. He loves dinosaurs, and so we went to an animal themed course this time. And he's like, I shot the worst ever. I don't know if I'm going to ever forget this. This was horrible. And we're like, buddy, but you had 2 holes in one. Daddy only had 1 hole in one. You had 2. He's like, well, that's true. I said, yeah. I said, so let's look at the thing from the positive point of view instead of a negative point of view. And he's like, all right. He's like, but I had the worst score than everybody. I was like, oh my goodness. Anyway, it got me to thinking how we look at things here on earth in our everyday life, right? So let me get into our verses, and then we'll talk a little bit. All right, so today God led me to Numbers 13 and 14. I'm just going to pick out some verses through both. If you have some time, dig in through these 2 chapters, and you'll see what I'm leading up to. And it really has to do with looking at things through spiritual eyes, as opposed to looking through things through our human eyes. All right. So this is the point in time where Moses sent out a scouting team, right? And this is what it says from the Message. It said, verse 1 and 2, God spoke to Moses, send men out to scout the country of Canaan that I'm giving to the people of Israel. All right. So God has already said he's going to give it to Israel. Send 1 man from each of the ancestral tribes, each one who is a tried and true leader in their tribe. So these are not men who are timid or afraid. These are bold men. These are tried and true leaders who have proven themselves. Okay, so we had the 12 tribes. We had Reuben, Simeon, Judah, Issachar, Ephraim, Benjamin, Zebulun, Manasseh, Dan, Asher, Naphtali, and Gad. Okay, and we had a representative from each of those tribes. Okay, so now they sent them out. Moses sent them out with orders. Tell us, who's there, what do they look like, how big they are, what type of fruit are there, what are their towns made of, what are their camps fortified with, is it walls, is it soil, is it forests? So all these types of things. So in they go, right? And immediately they arrive in the valley, and they cut off a single cluster of grapes, in which scripture describes it as needing 2 men to carry it. That's how heavy this cluster was, right? And in the Message, it says they slung it on a pole. All right, so they were doing all this scouting for 40 days, right? So picking up from chapter 13, verse 27, this was the report they brought back. We went to the land to which you sent us, and oh, it does flow with milk and honey. Just look at this fruit. So I imagine them just like throwing it on the floor and, looking at the size, and the whole community looking at the size and seeing how heavy and luscious and big it actually is, right? And then that's when the good report ended, right? The next thing out of their mouths were, there's only one tiny little thing, right? Is that the people who live there are fierce. Their cities are huge and well fortified. Worse yet, we saw the descendants of the giant Anak. Amalekites are spread out into the Negev. The Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites hold the hill country, and the Canaanites are established on the Mediterranean Sea along the Jordan. Caleb interrupted. That's what the message says. Caleb interrupted, called for silence. So at this point in time, I imagine that there was starting to be an uproar and horror and fear. Oh my gosh, what is God doing? He brought us all the way out here, right? But Caleb stands up and stops it all. He calls for silence. And he says to Moses, let's go up and take the land now. We can do it. But the others said, we can't attack those people. They were way stronger than we are. They spread scary rumors among the people of Israel. They said, we scouted out the land from one end to the other. It's a land that swallows people whole. Everybody we saw was huge. Why, we even saw the Nephilim giants, the Anak giants came from Nephilim. Alongside them, we felt like grasshoppers. And they looked down on us as if we were grasshoppers. All right, skipping all the way to chapter 14, all the way to verse 36. So it happened. So now God came down, and so it happened that the men Moses sent to scout out the land returned to circulate false rumors about the land, causing the entire community to grumble against Moses. And this is what scripture says. All these men died, having spread false rumors of the land. They died in a plague, confronted by God. Only Joshua and Caleb were left alive of the men who went out to scout the land. Now think about it. All these men, again, were leaders, tried and true leaders of Israel. And for whatever reason, they were looking at this thing through human eyes. Joshua and Caleb were looking at this thing through spiritual eyes, and they were trusting in what God said. God said that I have already given it to you. You just need to take it, right? So bringing this thing back to my son, I was trying to get him to look through the positive portion of today, right? It's rare that he ever gets a hole in one. We've had rounds where he does get a hole in one, but let alone two. I think this was the first time he ever had 2 holes in one day. And I'm like, let's kind of focus on that, right? And by the end of the day, I think we had him in a good spot. But we do that so often in our own lives, right? We look at the circumstances around us, right? And we're like, oh, we're never going to get out of this. We're never going to get away from this. I don't know what God can possibly do in this situation. But why? We're looking at it through human eyes. Okay, that's when we need to press in, and that's where our relationship with God kicks in. And we gotta get alone in that alone time, in that quiet time, and say, God, what's going on here? Open my spiritual eyes to allow me to see what's happening. And more often than not, it's been my experience that ends up what's happening. Now, if God doesn't reveal it to me right away, I don't give up on it. I keep pressing in. I keep on asking until I get a revelation on the situation. So I hope this was a blessing. I know I went a little bit longer than my normal 5-6 minutes, but there was a lot to be said here today. So dig into these verses, and we'll be back tomorrow. God bless.